Can you tell me a bit about what you do? Get started just with an introduction and everything like that.
Yeah, okay. A little bit of an intro then is I'm Alex Harvey. I say co-founder at RiVR. RiVR stands for Reality in Virtual Reality. My background was the games industry, so I used to work in making computer games for Codemasters. I used to make racing games for them for 8 years. And then in 2016, we started RiVR, and now there's 20 of us. And we make virtual reality training for the blue light services all over the world. We do blue light services a lot, but we also do Tesla and other people like that, like normal companies, rather than just the police and fire brigade. But we started mainly doing police and fire stuff. So yeah, we've got a few products. We have 360 video sharing solution, which is the software and the box, where we make virtual reality headsets, maybe 15 headsets in a box, and we ship that out to people, and it allows them to run a simultaneous video lesson for people in a classroom setting in a VR headset. And we also make fire scene and crime scene investigations, and that's in room scale photorealistic virtual reality, so very different to the other thing I mentioned. I always say VR, and then there's two things that come off that. It's either 3 degrees of freedom or 6 degrees of freedom. We call it 3 DOF or 6 DOF.
Okay.
And that's the ability to move around the scene is 6 DOF, move around, pick things up and interact, whereas 3 DOF is mainly video. Okay. And in a video world, we would have 15 people sat in a classroom with a RiVR Link kit, and the instructor would press play on the laptop, and the same video would play for everyone, and they can all view the experience themselves wherever they want to look, and the instructor can see where they're all looking on a laptop. And that's 3 DOF training, much more accessible for people. 6 DOF is much more, we make it for them. So we might scan an environment of a crime scene and then allow you to walk around the crime scene and pick up the gun, for example. Mm-hmm. So that's a basis of what we do.
What was the motivation behind starting up RiVR?
So I was at Codemasters, and I was a video editor, and I was making the game trailers for the games to make people buy the games. So my job was to make the game look good, even if the game wasn't good, make it look good so people would buy the game. And I used to speak to Formula One teams quite a lot in the racing world to tell them that they could do this and this and this with our game. But I kept getting told off by people at Codemasters because that wasn't my job. My job was just to do video editing, not to speak to Formula One teams. So I got a disciplinary because it wasn't my job, it was the marketing team's job. And after a while, although it was the best job I've ever had, I had to leave and say, I want to start my own thing, because I was 38 or no, 20, 28, 30, about 30, I think, I can't remember. 36? Don't know, I'm 43 now. Anyway, I had to leave. In 2014, I left. So how old was I? I'm crap with dates. I was 34, I think, something like that. I had to leave because I wanted to start my own thing. So we left, and I started working for Formula One teams, and I made videos for them because I was good at doing the video thing. And then when 360 cameras came out, I thought that was an amazing way of capturing an environment and showing people what it's like to be in a scene. And so the team started growing. There's 3 of us. I brought my brother on board. He was a pilot, started flying drones for me. And then we basically made a company, first of all, that sold, we did house videos. So we used to film 30 big, posh mansion houses every month. We would film 30 houses and make like a game trailer sort of thing, like a trailer for each house to allow the house to get sold. And we got rid of that after a bit because it was just too time consuming to do a service for people. My goal then was to make products for people. So we saw 360 video, and I went to Thompson Holidays. It's a TUI, it's a holiday company that provides different holidays for people all over the world. And I said to them, if we use this 360 camera technology to film your holidays and cruise ships and aeroplanes, then we could put 4 people into VR headsets and show them what it's like to be in those environments, actually be there. And that's how it started. That's how River Link started. We made it for the holiday industry first. So that in a holiday shop, you could have a family of 4 all looking round a cruise ship. And they sent us on 2 cruise ships in Barbados and 2 cruise ships in Spain. And we had to film the cruise ships for them and made the software. And that was River Link. And then I stumbled across the fire service at a show in England, 2017, and I saw that they had a 360 video, but they had 5 people experiencing the video at the same time, but they also had 5 firefighters all managing each headset for those people. And so the firefighter was pressing the button on the side of the headset, and it was on a Samsung Gear VR headset, and they used to press the button, and then the video would play. But the firefighter had to stand in front of the person for the whole film, wait till it finished, take the headset off, put it on someone else, and just repeat it all day. So I said to the fire service, we can change this. You've got 5 firefighters here. Let's make it 1. Mm-hmm. And 1 and a finger. And he can just press his button on a laptop. And that's how River Link started for the fire service. And then we carried on with that. But yeah, the other bit that happened at the same time as us making River Link was I found out about photogrammetry. And photogrammetry is the process of taking thousands of images of a person, a place, environment, and then making a 3D model of that person, place, or environment, where the texture looks like a photo. So it looks like you're inside a photorealistic scene. Mm-hmm. When I saw photogrammetry inside virtual reality in 2016, because I was addicted to video anyway, I used to make video game trailers and then 360 video, but you're always just locked inside a bubble. As soon as I saw photogrammetry in room scale VR, it blew my mind off, and I couldn't believe that I was walking around what felt like I was inside a video. It felt like I was walking inside a video environment. And I just thought, this is amazing. This is what I want to make forever. And that's like, so photogrammetry in VR is the pinnacle of the stuff we do. And we used to go around and show everyone this VR demo that we had. It was called the Cora Suite. That's what we called it. And it was a burnt environment. It was a burnt room and warehouse. And we went and photogrammetry scanned it in 2017. We recreated this environment, and everyone said to me, you won't be able to put photogrammetry into virtual reality because it's too big. The texture's too big. The size of the file's too big. It will just make the virtual reality crash. So I just said to them, like, no, I want to see it. I don't care if the computer sets on fire. I want to know what the limitation is. What is it? Is it the graphics card? Do we need a bigger graphics card? What? And then we managed to do it, and they decimated it and simplified the model so that it was good enough to play in VR. And we had a little bit where you're in this burnt room and you walk over to the edge of this doorway and you look out of the doorway, and in the alleyway below there was a dead body on the floor that we'd also scanned, photorealistic body, where someone looked like they'd fallen out the window. Mm-hmm. And just showing people that demo made us work with, we've now done counter-terrorism crime scenes for the UK government and the US government, DOD in America. I've been all over the world making these scenes. We did a scene for Axon, the body-worn camera company. Because people don't know about it, when you experience photorealistic VR in room scale VR, it absolutely blows you away because you feel like you're in a real crime scene. Mm-hmm. You look around and it looks like the real world. It's really disconcerting and powerful. And so that's our 2 things, yeah, photorealistic VR and video VR. And we have products for both, and we're developing more products. I've just got off a call now where we're making other things around those 2 things, but they're the They're the main types of VR.
Yeah, that's very impressive. It's kind of like the direction I'm looking at, where I'm looking at the use case being for viewing evidence in the courtroom. So, can you tell me a bit about your work with fire investigation training and crime scene investigation, and more specifically, like some of the cases you've worked on, and how the equipment you use, everything like that? The process of putting it together.
Yeah, cool. So in the fire world, I've just wrote down two things: fire and crime, both in VR, both in 6DOF. We've made a product called RiVR Investigate, and that is for fire and arson investigators to investigate the cause of a fire. So at the moment, and this all came about by seeing how they do their training now. That's the bit I like doing. I like going to the police or the fire guys and working out. I say to them, what are you doing? How do you train your people to do the things they do? And they showed me that at most fire stations in America, Canada, and England, everywhere, they have a big container, like a square metal box at the back of the fire station, and they dress it and they make it look like a front room or a bedroom or a kitchen with all the bits in there. And then they set fire to it, and then they let the fire spread through the container, and then they put the fire out, so with water, put it out slowly so that it doesn't mess it all up. And then the firefighters, investigators go in and investigate the fire to see how that fire started. Whether it was the plug on the wall, was it a candle that fell over, was it smoking? Anyway, they do this regularly, and the people are breathing in all of that stuff, carcinogenic stuff, and they do it over and over again. And every time they do it, they put like 5 people, 10 people through the scene, and the people get to walk around the scene, and they point at stuff, and they say, oh yeah, the smoke pattern here indicates that it might have been this, this, and this. And then the instructor said to one of the people, don't touch anything. And I was like, in the real world, when you go and investigate a fire, do they touch things? And they said, yeah. And I was like, what? So in the fake one, they're not allowed to do what they do in the real one because they're going to put another 10 people through the scene afterwards. So they say, don't move anything because you mess up the scene. I was like, this is perfect for virtual reality. So we use the same process of photogrammetry on the fire scenes. Now we've got 8 scenes. We have 3 containers that we burn new scenes in. And once we burn a scene, we take all the items out one by one and we photogrammetry scan them. So like whatever is the old Codemasters cup. Whatever is the item that's burnt, we take it out, put it on the side on like a turntable, and take like 500 photos of this burnt cup. And we do that with the table, with the sofa, with everything that's in the scene. And then in Unity, which is just a game developing software, either Unity or Unreal normally, we use Unity. We put all the items back together in that room, and then we allow the user to walk in VR, pick up the cup, look underneath it, and see the burnt mark underneath, or look in it, or whatever they need to do. And so that's the process we made for fire investigation. And we also, at the time of burning each scene, we film it in 360 video. So at the end of everyone's lesson, when someone's done a fire investigation training scene in our software, they say to their instructor, who's like stood by them or inside VR with them, however they want to do it, they say to the instructor, I think the fire started underneath the fridge because of this, this, and this. And then they say, okay, let's watch the video. So in the same headset, they get transported to a 360 video of the fire starting, and they get to watch the fire. That's their learning outcome. So they're like, oh my God, it started, yeah, I was right. It started underneath the fridge.
And they can actually handle everything, pick up objects, and actually do the investigation like in real life. Yeah,
same. And then they can put another people through it. Basically, this is the bit I like. there's a button in there that the instructor presses, and the whole scene resets back to normal. Everything goes back to how it was. That's the button that saves them £5,000 every time they press the button.
Yeah.
Because they're resetting the scene. But the guys, they wouldn't let me put that into the actual scene. I wanted to put it as a big red button that says, save £5,000, click, but they wouldn't let me do that. So it's just a little button in the menu that you press reset and it restarts the scene. And so there's 8 of those scenes. We normally make 1-ish every year, and we just keep adding it. But we sell that on a license fee to the fire service for like $14,000 a year for the license. But that saves them. They have 8 scenes, and they can put as many people they want through that scene. No one's breathing in any stuff, so that's that. That's River Investigate. It's for fire and arson investigators. It's a very niche market, but it's easy when it's niche because we can say that's our audience. And once people find out about that, and it's a funny moment when they find out and they're like, oh, we've been burning containers for like years and putting our firefighters in harm's way. And then I say to them, well, now you can't do that anymore because you're putting them in harm's way every time you do a burn when you don't have to. You can have a photorealistic equivalent, and it works really well. It sells really well, but it's really hard to tell everyone about it. I can never shout about it enough. It's amazing. It's the first thing we made, but probably no one knows about it.
With reaching out to people or telling people about it?
What do you say? What are the challenges?
Yeah, with reaching out to people and telling them about it.
Yeah, I mean, for them to understand it, it has to be said how I just said to you, really. And that's like, I don't know, 10-minute chat. It's confusing if I just mention it. We have a video that's 1 minute long that shows it as much as I can in a minute long. But the best way to show it is on a headset. So in a VR headset, and that's why we do so many shows all around the world that get people to put the headsets on and experience it. But then me finding a fire investigator and then putting a headset on him somewhere in the world, it's hard. It's hard to find the people, and I can never really reach enough. So the more you can talk about it as well to people, the better. With your research and finding out, it's really good. So that was fire.
I actually
and then we made CSI.
Before we move on to the CSI, I also saw in your investigation demo, you brought in a dog, one of the dogs to sniff out, which I thought, well, that's actually very, very good because, I mean, the dog's also breathing in the same fumes if you're
yeah, it's a good point. The dog. Yeah, every single burn we did, out of the 8, 3 of them were, the causation was arson. So like somebody chucked a firebomb or whatever through the window, or there was a malicious way that it got set on fire. So that dog is a training dog that they call in the real world to sniff the environment for accelerant to see if there was any foul play in that scene. Or not foul play, just was there any accelerant used in the scene? And so we call the dog into every scene and he sniffs an area, wags his tail and indicates if there is accelerant. So in 3 of the scenes, he does indicate that there was accelerant in the scene, and that's part of the person's process. So again, it's another thing you can't do in the real world for training. You can't ring a dog every time they do a training environment to come and sniff the scene, but in VR, you just press a button and you're in it. So it's another good advantage. It's a good point. I forgot to mention it. That there's 2 videos that play. There's either the burn video, watching the fire progress, and there's the dog video. And sat alongside that is the room scale environment where you can pick things up and interact. And so they're all done in the headset with the trainer. And that we basically just copied what they do in the real world. That's all we do with these VR scenes is go and work out how they do it and then give them a safe environment that's photorealistic to do the same thing.
And how do you work out the accuracy of the models, like particularly the physics, like gravity and everything like that? Because I noticed in that same video, it's like you could just drop a cup and it falls, and you want that realism too.
Yeah, we have everything in there has physics, but that's not too hard to do because it's just tick physics on. Like, and if we wanted to, we can make that item float. Okay. All they've done is just copied the real world physics and said, if I drop this pen, it drops at this speed, and that's exactly what it is in VR. It's grabbable, it's droppable, and it just has real world physics, they call it. So that's a thing that game engines have done for a while. Okay. If we wanted to change that, we could drop the pen and it would float around slowly if we wanted to have it do that in VR. But yeah, that's not a hard part of it. It's an easy tick box.
Oh, okay. And is that just in Unity or something, or is that...
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, just in Unity.
So what's the... I guess we'll move on to the crime scene investigations work that you do. I'm very curious about how that works, who you work with, what you do.
Yeah, the crime scene one, again, 6 degrees of freedom. So you can move around, walk around, pick things up. But very different from the fire one, where there is a causation in the fire one, where there's always a place the fire started. Was it there or there? There was only be one cause. Whereas the crime scene needs to be multiple scenes laid out differently, and you might want to make a different scene to the other person who wants to have a go in there. So we basically call it a crime scene sandbox. So it allows people to pick things up, move things around. You basically you start with a house or a outside wooded area, or you can upload your own model of a different environment. And you basically have in your hand in VR a tablet. And on the tablet, you can search through guns and knives and bodies and bin bags or whatever. And you just pick up the item, drop it where you want it, but place it where you want it. So the knife, you might put the knife on the sofa. And then you might put the body on the floor. And then when the body's on the floor, you can like move their arms around or move their hands around to make them in a different pose. And then you can drip some blood over them, and then you can press save. This is all done in VR. So it came about by copying a real-world crime scene house that I found in England, in Derby. There's a house at Derby University, and most places have the same sort of thing, where they have a real house, and in every room they have a camera in the corner of the room to watch the students doing their forensic investigation training. And the teachers set up the scene by putting a body on the floor, smash the window, all these things. And then they send the students in their white suits, and they have to do fingerprints on different places and do DNA swabs from the wall and this type of stuff. So basically just copied that. Okay. And just make that environment inside VR, allow them to press save, and then bring their friends in multiplayer. So you can have 10 people all looking around the same house, but they could all be in different locations around the world, all into this one house. And they do fingerprinting, take photos, get a torch, look inside the washing machine, see if there's dirty sheets. That's the crime scene house. It's we made it first of all with 3 pre-built scenarios, and now we've just pivoted it and changed it into like a full sandbox solution. But it's not actually released that yet. That's not out there for the public to download. It will be, but we've done it internally, and we had a team of 4 forensic investigators that would use it, test it, trial it, so that we could get some feedback on it. I think it's being demoed by maybe 10 different universities, but it's for forensic universities that are teaching crime scene investigation, and it's for police officers that are doing that sort of thing as well. And eventually we'll have the Canadian pack and the English pack and all the other different things, because everyone has their own different procedures, but it won't be marking you if you've done it right or wrong. That's the teacher's job. That's how, because they do things differently in these crime houses. So the Canadians might do it differently to the English, and that's up to them to train that. And that's what I think sandbox is the key to a lot of these things, that people do things differently. Some people use, silver fingerprint dust, and some people use white dust. Like, it's just a different way. And so, that's the crime scene investigation. And that, just going back to the river investigator, the fire one, that used to be on a big headset, so the HTC Vive headset as the equipment, with 2 lighthouses that track your position in the space. And so people had to buy a laptop, a Vive, and the software. Well, now, on crime scene investigation, because it's newer, we just have one headset, and that's it. Because the headset, the Quest 3 and the Quest 2, by Facebook, those headsets allow more power, and they have a thing called inside-out tracking. So they have cameras on the headset looking out at the world, whereas the Vive on the old system had sensors looking in onto the headset. So a lot of the pain has been removed over the last 5 years because of hardware improvements.
Yeah, what's the resolution like, and like the motion smoothness, achievable latency, and everything like that?
In the fire investigation, we had a big PC attached to the headset, so that it was always really well powered. But it's really important for me that we always get 90 frames per second in the headset. I always want it to be that, because if that drops anywhere lower, you'll feel sick a bit, because it's like laggy and things look crap. And we've fought against it for years. That so many people I've done demonstrations with say to me, I don't like VR, it makes me feel sick. And I say to them, what have you played before? And they say to me, a roller coaster. And I'm like, yep, that's going to make you feel sick. Like, that's what it does in the real world. Like, I say, have you ever walked around a room before and looked underneath a table? Because that's what I make. We don't make roller coasters, because the roller coaster simulators and all that type of stuff is so detrimental to VR training. You can affect someone's experience and outlook, their perceived outlook of a virtual reality training system, because they played it on a mobile phone headset, where I've got all the old headsets here in a big suitcase. If you slip a phone into one of them and put it on your head, you'll feel sick. And so when people have that experience, they don't want to try the training version that is really smooth, and they class it all into the same thing as bad. And
the accuracy, I think, matters a lot too, like how high objects are, like a table, and like where things are placed, and whether you can actually touch the table when you intend to touch the table, or you miss the table when you intend to touch the table. I know has an effect. So
scale.
Yeah. So like, how do you guys get around that? How easy is it to get around that? I know you talked a little bit about it already.
With touch, obviously we can't do anything with touch, because we whole different conversation, I guess, with touch. But we just have controllers that we interact with, and when we pick up an item, we highlight the item. If I've got a controller in my hand in VR and I go down to touch it, then the whole object has a little tiny blue outline around it, which allows us to see that I can pick it up. And we can do force feedback, so the controller can vibrate a bit. But other than that, we don't do much about touch. But scale is just real world scale. We recreate rooms to feel like rooms. When we scan a table, we put it into VR the same size as the table was. The height of the person is determined by where their headset is, same as their height in the real world. So scale is not an issue, because we don't mess with scale. But if you're doing a game where you want to have everything massive, we could walk around our environments the size of an ant and look around and look at the table leg if you wanted to scale the environment up. We just don't do that. But it'd be interesting to do that, like for a fun experience. But when we're replicating the real world and we want it to look like the real world, we just keep the scale the same.
That makes sense. Can you tell me a bit about the like terrorism crime scenes you do, and how does that work? Or investigations?
After we did the fire and started making those scenes, and the Coral Suite, which was our like demo scene, we showed the UK government those scenes, and they're called DSTL. They're the like innovation arm of the UK government that looks for current latest technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called Defence Science Technology Lab, something like that. And they work for the MOD. They basically saw our environment and were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Can you make an environment for counter-terrorism training? We said, yeah. Obviously, they paid us to do it. But those scenes are like one-off scenes. We do one a year for the government. And the UK government is part of a trilateral agreement with like Canada, US, UK. The governments all speak to each other and share best practice. Mm-hmm. So every year we go in November. This is the first year I'm not going actually, but we go to Orlando, Florida. They have a simulation training conference called IITSEC, I/ITSEC. You can see it online if you want, but they meet at this event and they show off what they've done that year. So they normally show our scene there and they talk about it with Canada and US. I've been over to the Americans and seen their things as well. But we basically, do you remember the 7/7 bombings in London? There was like 9/11 and then there was like 7/7 in London where there was 3 or 4 people with rucksacks that went in the tubes and on the buses with homemade explosives and blew up these buses and trains. Well, we were tasked with recreating the flat that they found in Manchester where all those devices were made. Mm. So we scanned my mum's flat using a laser scanner and photogrammetry, and then we went down to London and scanned all the tiny little devices and bits to do with those explosives. And we recreated the flat in which these peroxide and fertilizer and all these things were made, and they use that now as a training tool for police and fire and ambulance all across the UK. And I was actually out with the West Midlands Fire Service and Ambulance Service a couple of weeks ago, where they were trialling the experience on the staff. So we basically made a photorealistic scene with all the components that were used in that attack, so that when these people go into flats and houses going forward, they might spot the telltale signs of things like lots of black hair dye all over the bathroom. I was like, what's that for? And because they were using peroxide, all of their facial hair was going blonde.
Yeah.
So they had to keep dyeing their hair black, and the windowsills in all the bedrooms, the paint was peeling off the windowsills because of the corrosive smells and stuff. So we basically recreated this whole flat for them. Yeah. And this was done like 3 years ago. And now they just trial it. They go out and show people, put people through it. They show some videos, they put them through. They have to go in the scene and like mark objects that they think are hazardous. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the scenes we made for the UK government. And then we did another one that was a dead body in the front room that had been stabbed. And then in the bedroom, there was a body that was still breathing. So you had to go in the bedroom and put your ear in VR, put your ear over the person's mouth and you could hear them still breathing. And different variations of that. And then we made one for Axon, the body-worn camera company.
Yeah.
That was a stop and search. So you're driving along, they have to stop a car, and then you have to walk up and knock on the window. Then the person gets out of the car and they're either calm or irate, depending on what you say to that person. Mm. But these are bespoke games that we make for VR, the photorealistic and 6DoF, and they're never products that we get to sell, but the governments are using them, but we don't get to show them or talk about them. Mm-hmm. They're just things that RiVR has made in the past. And we like them, I'm proud of them, they're really cool, but they don't make us any money other than the amount we charge them to make the scene. So I prefer the products that we make, like mm-hmm. Fire Investigation, Crime Scene Investigation and RiVR Link, because we can sell it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Do you think down the road you'll be able to sell the certain crime scene investigations, like the terrorism investigations, in the same way that you do with the fire investigations for training purposes to in a more
There is plans for us to sell it. When I was with the guys doing it in West Mids the other day, they put one person at a time through the scenario while the other people watch on the screen. And I said to the guy, this is not how you should do it. This was made 3 years ago. That technology they were using was a Vive with a laptop and a cable. I said, we need to port this from the game world that's on a computer and a headset. We need to port it down onto Quest 3 so that you can have 4 people all in the same environment, all cordoned off in their own little areas. They can all do it at the same time. And that would be a product that we could then sell to all of the police stations, fire stations, ambulance stations in a box of headsets. So they'll open the box, 4 headsets, go, and it won't get shown to the public. This would just be something for them to use. But in the same, we're talking about things that are progressing. That headset's progressed into a Quest 3, but also our RiVR Link system, which is the classroom-based training, has also progressed to Quest 3. So in the future, imagine a box of 10 headsets, you open it up, and today you might do training on video, where you're going along and everyone's in a video that's looking at a 360 video and the tutor's drawing on things. Then the next day, people can put the same headsets on and walk around and pick things up and interact with stuff. So up until now, that's been done on different devices. They was done on a Pico headset for 3 degrees of freedom in a box. We'd put 10 of them in a box, and we would sell the Vive on its own for this experience. Other room scale things. Well, now they're merged. You can use the same headset for both things. So that's going to help us and everyone with the confusion around VR is going to get a lot sort of easier to deal with the current headsets, especially when Apple released their next headset their first headset in January.
I'm very curious to try that one out. That sounds like a great package you can put together too. I'm wondering, what's the cost to putting something like that together and selling that, and how manageable is it for companies? Because I think in the courtroom setting, if it was to be used to present a piece of evidence, this might be something that different courtrooms would want to buy. So then they've got all this kit of headsets, and I'm imagining, does the software come with it too? How do you deliver the packages?
I guess I can talk about where we are now and what it will be in the future, because the courtroom thing will totally, in the future, and that's not a long time away, but, a year away, you could have a courtroom would have a kit that would open up in the corner of the court, have 10 headsets in, or 12. The biggest we'd do is 12. You would imagine all the people in the court would put a headset on, 360. So they're all sat down. They could put a headset on, and then the person in the courtroom could say, right, now we're going to take you to the crime scene of where the crime happened. Click. And now all those people are sat there, and then the person would say, okay, look to your left and you'll see where the body was found. Everyone will look to the left and go, okay, I get it. It was on the mud, by the tree, there was some blood, blah, blah, blah. And that could be a photo or a video that was taken actually at the crime scene by the investigator that got there first. And they're all looking at it. And then the person who's talking can say, if you look at where I've just highlighted, everyone's looking there, they say, this is where we found the fingerprints. Highlight the area, they're all looking at it. That's doable now. You can do that synchronized in a courtroom today. It's just that so many people are against that because of modern technology, messing with evidence, all these things. People are not happy with it yet. But I could do that. We could get that. We could make that happen. But the next stage would be, and I think that's a nice way to do it, controlled, because everyone's still sat down and they're not going to be walking around. The next stage would be put a headset on, and now you can walk around the environment. Now, I don't know how you do that in a courtroom, because you probably don't want people to be walking around.
Yeah.
So it might be that 3 degrees of freedom, 360 photo, 360 video, or 3D 180 video, which is just another format of video VR. That might be the way you deliver that. And you might never let them look around the crime scene or look underneath the table. One, because they'll take up too much space. 2, because they could just run off around and go in another room without you knowing where they are. It might just be step too far. And it's also really costly to get that environment scanned.
Yeah.
So there's a few, with courtroom chats, I always try and come back to video. And a lot of people now, they scan they scan a crime scene with a laser, or a car crash scene with a laser scanner. There's quite a lot of police forces that do that. We've got a laser scanner that we use a lot. Anyway, a laser scan is very different to photogrammetry scan. A photogrammetry scan of a whole environment would take my guys with, 2 people might be able to scan a whole house in 3 or 4 hours, maybe, and maybe take 20,000 photos, and it would look like a photorealistic house that you could look around. But a laser scanner could probably do it in 20 minutes, half an hour. So a laser scan's good. The laser scan gives you a 360 photo from wherever the laser scanner was positioned and did a scan, and it gives you a point cloud. And a point cloud is very different to a photogrammetry scan. You could have a coloured point cloud that would mean this wall behind me would be that colour. But when you got up to it in VR, you would see that there's hundreds of millions of points. Whereas when you get up to the texture in VR with photogrammetry, it's flat. I could shine a torch on it and it look like the real world. But the laser scan would be very accurate. That could be usable in court for measuring stuff. And so basically what I'm saying is, with the video system where you have 12 people sat down looking around inside a video, that's cool. But if you've got a laser scan, we're also developing this thing, we call it viewpoint, river viewpoint, where it's point cloud from the laser scanner from a crime scene. But in that world, we set a point A and a point B, and we slowly move the camera through those points, but it's a globe. So imagine a 360 video from that spline, and now we put 12 people inside that experience. We move them really slowly. The instructor can press pause whenever they want and say, look down there, you'll see the body. But what you're looking at is, it doesn't look like a photo. It looks like the room, but you can see that there's millions of points in this room. So that's a way of containing the courtroom people so they don't run off and go around the crime scene. You would just show them an environment that you want them to see. So we can put point cloud into RiVR. That's just a thing that we do. But we could put them into the environment and have them walk around the point cloud, but you'd have a hard time controlling the people.
Yeah, I could see it being very useful too for very complicated scenes where, or pieces of evidence, such as an expert describing where a fire started and the direction the fire went in. Anything where you need, where you're working with X, Y, and Z, not just X and Y, where maybe a picture would be okay or just a diagram. Once it gets to a certain level of complexity, it's a lot for a jury to take in. So VR, I can see being very, very helpful at sort of allowing jurors as well as judges to actually instead of having to visualize a long description being laid out by an expert, they can actually see what's going on, what the expert's talking about as they're describing it.
It literally is the suspension of disbelief. So when you try to say to someone, imagine what it's like in this room. It's got a cream wall with, brown floor, and the fridge is to the right, and the weapon was on the floor. Like, I've got to visualize that, and I've got to translate it and try and think what it's like in that environment. There's a jury, they're all doing it differently. So instead of that, you just suspend disbelief and go, there you are. Here's the viewpoint from the fridge. As you can see, no one could have shot round that corner because of this. Have you ever seen the film or Netflix thing called The Staircase?
No, I haven't.
It's a crime. It's just a crime documentary, real world crime documentary on Netflix, about a case in America where this man was accused of killing his wife in the house, and the bottom of the staircase was apparently where she fell down the stairs, and they say, no, he beat her to death at the bottom of the stairs and all this. I always talk about that one, because if I could put that jewellery at the bottom of that staircase, it was a really small staircase. You could see that he probably couldn't swing a golf club like they were saying he was swinging a golf club, because the stairwell was too small. So it would allow me to put people into that environment if people don't know about it. So it's up to people like yourself to make people aware of what's possible, because they're all very good at looking at a 2D screen or looking at an iPad. But the problem is that the human brain does not work when we're trying to either manipulate or look at a spatial scene. The human brain can't do it on a 2D screen. It's really hard for us to imagine what it's like. But when you put the headset on someone and tell them to kneel down, look under the table, they suddenly know exactly where they are, and they know how to look around the scene, as long as the scale's right.
Yeah. So, what areas do you think that... Actually, before I get to that question, I had a thought too with respect to some of the setbacks with introducing VR into the courtroom. It's interesting how you suggest it could happen next year, which I think, honestly, with where technology is, like, we've got the hardware, we've got the software, it's definitely not impossible. There's a lot of other people who suggest, oh, this is way, way off. And I think that's very interesting, and I'm very curious. What are your thoughts on that perspective? Have you heard people sort of talk about it like, oh, it's impossible to do now? Like, we're probably looking at this 10 years, 20 years, 40 years into the future. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I find that very interesting, the difference in timescales people bring up.
Yeah, it's really frustrating when I hear people put long timescales on things. In 2018, we could have put people into a photorealistic crime scene one at a time straight away. I need the data. I need the crime scene investigators to capture laser scans, 360 photos, and photogrammetry. The irony is that they can do it now. They could do it in 2018. They just don't know they can do it. And the super irony is that every crime scene investigator has a camera, like a photo camera. And the photo camera allows you to take 1,000 photos. If you've got 1,000 photos of a room from most angles, I can make a 3D model of that room. So I guess everyone needs to know about photogrammetry.
Yeah, and I guess LiDAR and everything too.
Yeah, the different variants of capturing a scene, and that means, photogrammetry or LiDAR or 360 photo. It's very complex for people to understand. So for the last 5 years, I've been trying to make it simple for people, but it's going to take probably a lot more years for me to be able to get that message out to everyone, as well as other people that are trying to get the message out.
Yeah.
But the things that are happening is photogrammetry was a thing that we used 5 years ago, and then like 2 years ago, there's a thing came out called NERF, N-E-R-F, and that's like a different way of visualizing the scene where I could do a video. So like I could walk around, shoot a video on my phone, load it into some software on my phone and make a 3D model from a video, but it wouldn't have really accurate looking sharp textures. Looks a bit fluffy, got a bit of holes in it and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Now there's another thing that's called Gaussian splat. Sounds really weird name, but the only reason I can remember it is because in Photoshop there's a setting that I used to use that was called Gaussian blur. Mm-hmm. So they've now named it Gaussian splat. So if you imagine it, photogrammetry, nerf, Gaussian splat. And Gaussian splat is basically nerf and photogrammetry combined so that the game engines and modern visualization tools can display it in an optimized way. Mm-hmm. That's basically what it is. There's a lot of more to it than that, but Gaussian splat, or they call it splats, allows you to, I could do a video of this kitchen, and as long as I've got most angles, it will recreate the scene for me really well, and I can view that scene in VR. It'll look really good, and it'll have all the lighting. It lets me do shiny things, whereas photogrammetry didn't like reflective surfaces or shiny windows. You can do those surfaces with Gaussian splat. And so that's where things are going. Like the courtrooms and everyone, the crime people, they can say that it's not ready, it's 20 years off. But as they're saying those words, the technology is still advancing behind the scenes. And they'll be shocked when they see it all and they realise what can happen, especially with video, because like every police officer that attends a scene first time don't have to have a laser scanner anymore. They can just have a camera phone in their hand, make sure they're videoing, or do a body-worn camera. Like, as long as they're videoing, I can make a 3D replica of that scene, which is really powerful. Yeah, that's the Gaussian
And I imagine,
splat.
too, with all of these different tools, like that the police and various investigation teams are already using, they're already putting it into the software to put the scene together and examine it themselves. Like, I don't think, in my mind, I don't think that it's much of a leap to then put that into a VR system. And if everybody's using like the same system, like everybody's using Quest 3 or something like that, and it comes as a kit, it's like, okay, well, we just have to make sure that it is formatted to work with Quest 3. You just plug it in and then it works.
Totally. We're making a new product that is called RiVR, so it's ARC. And that is going to be our sandbox system, a bit like the crime scene investigation is a sandbox system. RiVR is going to allow anyone, whether you're a company or a person, to make a room scale environment to do whatever you want to do, and we'll just charge it as a license fee for you to do that. So the police and fire would probably use that in the future to display all of their information, because you're right, they are taking photos and video already inside these scenes. If they work out that those photos and video can make them a 3D scene, and that 3D scene can be viewed in our system, then it's just a question of, have we got the system to view that data? Because at the moment they will all just view it on a 2D screen. Yeah. And there's not many people, they definitely don't use it. There's much more room for people to use it, but they're going to work out that laser scanners are a pain to work with. I was using one the other day to scan an aircraft. Each scan takes me 2.5 minutes. I have to press a button. I have to stand there and wait for this thing to scan, and then I have to move the scanner 2 meters to the left and do it again. We had to do 35 scans around this aeroplane. You get a really good detailed model of the aeroplane, but if you can walk around it with a phone and get a detailed model, that's probably going to be fine.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it would be a lot quicker than like the 3 hours, roughly almost 3 hours it would take to
Mm.
do it with the scanner.
Yeah.
What would you say to people with questions surrounding motion sickness or ease of use, uncanny valley, those concerns with the use of VR in the courtroom, but also in investigations and stuff like that, or for investigations?
I guess uncanny valley is not an issue when you use 360 photo or video because you're viewing the real world. So there's nothing like that for that. But there is uncanny valley stuff when you're dealing with trying to recreate what a human looks like when we're talking to each other. Mm-hmm. We had that with the Axon experience because it doesn't look, as much as you can try and make someone look photorealistic, they don't. You can see that they're a game character. So I would always revert back to video because I can see your reactions in video, and there's two levels of VR video, 360 flat and 3D 180. And they're the two variants that are, like it used to be 360 flat, and 360 flat is basically if you shut one eye and look around the world like this, that's what 360 flat is. And 3D 180 allows me to just see 180 degrees in front of me, and it's like my human eyes. Mm-hmm. And they're shot on two different cameras, but they both can be played inside RiVR Link. And I find that 3D 180 for eye contact is absolutely amazing and adequate for so much stuff. Like we've done knife crime awareness videos and riot police training where I've sat down and I would get the camera my eye level with the interview person. They look through the camera and see my eyes, and then I interview them. And then when you watch it back on a VR headset, it looks like they're looking into your eyes, and it's amazing. Like 3D 180 for eye contact is stunning. It's very underused. It's like 0.0001% know about 3D 180 video footage in VR. Yeah. Apple fully know about it. Like they are massively aware that 3D 180 immersive video is going to be a thing that people are going to be blown away by before they get to photogrammetry VR, because it's going to be easy to shoot. We can go behind the scenes on Game of Thrones and have eye contact with people, and you'll be able to watch that on your sofa or couch at home. It excites me. That's another part of my world that I'm writing things now where we're going to be doing behind the scenes on film and TV. So immersive Netflix documentaries is where I will be doing a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine too there's going to be a lot of use cases for that, even in when it comes to crime scene investigations, interviews, that like maybe if you're interviewing a subject or a witness, I know there's eye contact's important to read, sort of like, are they telling the truth? Are they showing signs of deception? Yeah.
Imagine that at the moment where you normally have to read someone's interview.
Yeah.
And you don't get any of the visual cues to do with them looking left or looking right, but now you could just say, right, we're going to do an interview with you. Film. Mm-hmm. Right, go. Now you're like literally capturing the whole thing. So uncanny valley is not an issue with video, but it is an issue if you're trying to recreate someone, which you just wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. As soon as they understand that video is totally adequate for capturing immersive content and putting multiple people in the courtroom into video, then they haven't really got to do a super photorealistic scan of the environment where you've got to look underneath the table. Mm-hmm. You don't need it. You just need them to look around and see that the door's there and the kitchen window's there. Like, it's that spatial awareness inside a video.
Yeah, and it's like, I think use cases super important. Like there's going to be cases where, for investigating a crime scene and then bringing that evidence into court where it's like, okay, I could imagine it's if you're explaining the direction of a fire and where it started and how one room didn't get burnt, but the other one did, and trying to explain all that, you're going to want a slightly different kind of immersive experience for that than you would if you're just, and you're going to be using the scanners and everything. Whereas if you're just maybe showing details of like where the location of something that's not as complex or the scale.
Imagine that. I mean, this is a good bit that you can reference, I guess. If you've got, 12 jury members and they're all got a VR headset on, the technology now allows on the Quest 3 for you to have full colour pass-through. Mm-hmm. So you put a headset on and I can see the real world around me. I look a bit weird to other people because I've got a headset on.
Yeah.
But it's got eyes in the front of it, so I can basically send a text message, operate a computer, all with a headset on. So the jury would have the headset on, they can look left and see their jury member next to them, and they can see the person in front of them. Mm-hmm. And now, the jury man who's running the prosecution or whatever, they can say, right, now look at this weapon. They press a button, and in front of them, in each of them, I mean, I've only just thought about this now, but in RiVR, the thing we're making, we could pop an item out that is the gun in front of everyone. They can use their hands, pick it up, look at it, bring it closer to them, look closer, put it back down in pass-through VR. It's exciting that they'll be able to look at that, all of them on their own, and then they can put it down and they can look at the person in the eyes again and say, and the man can say to them or woman, I'm going to now put you into a 360 video where we are going to be in the room. Mm-hmm. Click the fingers and they're inside a video and they're looking around going, oh shit, okay, yeah, the window's over there, the door's over there. Then it fades back again and they can say, now we're going to go and look at the body, for example. I don't even know if they want to do this, but they could look at the 3D model of the body in front of them if they wanted to see the wounds, each of them, or they could have one model that everyone looks at, the same model. It depends how they're going to do it, but this is all possible now, but no one knows about it.
Yeah. So, and I think your focus on the guided version is a lot better, is more realistic and certainly has more safeguards in place than if they're just allowed to, jury members are just allowed to explore. I mean, it takes away from the distractibility too. And I know there's like when you first put VR on, if you've never used it before, and it's a very immersive, well done and accurate scene. It's like you can sort of get lost in everything and not be paying attention to what you're supposed to. So like I like how you focused on like having it guided, so it's always they're focused on what they're supposed to be focused on, and they could probably look around, but it's the distractibility.
It's an instructor. It's an instructor-led experience as opposed to if you're at home on the couch, you might want to do the investigation yourself. They're just very different experiences. You would, at home, allow people to walk around, teleport up the stairs and go and have a look around, whereas you don't want that in a courtroom. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of ease of use, so if people have questions concerning ease of use of VR in the courtroom for evidence presentation, like how do you address that?
Well, I mean, these are where they're going to get to. These are the Ray-Ban stories where these are by Facebook as well, but this is where it will get to in the future. But at the moment, we have a Quest 3, which is the most easy headset I've ever had on my head. So you put it on, and instantly it's like putting on a pair of glasses because I can see the world around me. And a little screen appears in front of me, and I can pinch it with my fingers and move it out of the way, and I can see your face. Mm. Like, my mum had a go on it, and she just went, like, she was blown away because she just moved the screen out of the way and she could see me. And we can just carry on talking. Whereas before, you were locked off in a world and you didn't know where to go in it. So I think with the release of Quest 3, it does allow the accessibility in a courtroom to be so much better easier than it used to be. It used to be very hard to control the people, but now you can see people's eyes. And with the Apple headset, although it'd be more expensive, that colour pass-through is absolutely crystal sharp.
Mm-hmm.
It's like better than the human eye. And I was in, we were in San Fran when they launched that headset, or when they announced it. And I met with Apple the day after, and it's absolutely stunning. Like, beyond, it's magical.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at an item with my eyes, and with my finger go like that, and I can move it with my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's full colour pass-through, so
yeah.
that's going to change things. Although the one at the moment, the Quest 3, is completely adequate compared to the old headsets. The ones that used to be around, or still are around, they had black and white pass-through. So you would see the world as a black and white representation, whereas now you can just see the real world.
Yeah,
it's really weird. This in the future, you'll just put these on, and you have with the big headsets.
Yeah.
It's an amazing. Like, I left the games industry to follow VR as a thing, because I don't see it. There's not many steps after this. It's almost the last medium. We had radio, we had TV, we had mobile phones, and all of these things you have to like suspend disbelief, and they're going to say, watch this screen, I'm going to tell you what it's like in the crime scene. Like, now you just put people in the crime scene.
Yeah.
Look around with their head. There's no more pretending.
Now, what are your thoughts on using augmented reality with VR? Is there good? Like, do you think they kind of go hand in hand, and one might be useful for one thing, one's useful for showing another?
Yeah, like I just mentioned about the gun in front of you, when you jump from seeing the gun to then being inside a full 360 photo inside the crime scene. These used to be on different devices, and our phones were a stopgap for devices like this, because augmented reality and virtual reality, in the same way 6DoF and 3DoF merged into one headset, they have now merged into one already. The Quest 3 is a mixed reality headset, so I can see through to the real world. Basically, everything I'm looking at is on a screen, and if you put headphones on, everything you hear is digital, so that's a really weird thing to think about if you go deeper with that, like what's real. We're seeing pixels and we're hearing audio that's not the real audio. I'm hearing you digital through my ears, and I'm seeing you on a screen. Anyway, it gets deep. I forgot what you were saying, but AR, mixed reality.
Yeah.
Mixed reality is basically the convergence now. That's where we're at. It's mixed. AR and VR is now not a separate thing. I can do AR and VR on the Quest 3.
Yeah. And
Apple have changed it. So on their headset, like you have the crown on a watch, the crown on the Apple headset merges you between real world and VR. They've done it really well. Like, it fades in and out. You can have a full, I call it lockout VR. Like, you're locked into a virtual reality world that could be the solar system, or I can fade it so that I can see the real world as well. And that's what they've done with a little switch.
Now, do you see any, how do I put it, concerns that you would need to make users aware of when they're using VR or AR for these purposes, like for looking at evidence in the courtroom? Like, could there be some issues that they might need to be aware of if they take this on, so that way it reduces any bias or prejudice that could potentially emerge?
I don't think so, because if their equivalent is they're going to take the jury on a bus and take them to the crime scene and put them at the crime scene. That's what you're doing in VR. Like, if you're showing video, then I think there's no bias there. You're just looking at video.
Mm-hmm.
It looks the same as you would be in the real world. If you're doing a laser scan photogrammetry version of a house that's a crime scene, then I would say, yeah, maybe someone might change that data so that the table was 3 feet long, but in the VR world it's 2 feet long, or the texture on the table that's supposed to show blood is the wrong colour because the pixels are wrong, or the scan was done with a different camera. So yeah, maybe colours of things. Colours, if it's really important that something's dark red blood or bright red fresh blood, I don't know.
And then what
colour could be an issue.
Yeah. What safeguards then would you put in to make sure that you achieve a high level of accuracy?
I think the accuracy can be done at the data capture level, and I think most people, like laser scanning companies like Leica Geosystems, they do have that in there now. So they basically, I don't know if they've done it yet, but they need to blockchain the data at point of capture. So onto the memory card and into the cloud. So it stamps it as, this is the data. It's an MP4 file, or it's an E57 file of laser scan data, and it was captured at this time from this location by this person. They need to fix the data. They need to authenticate the data at point of capture, basically.
So
and they do that now for laser scanning.
Yeah. All right. And so in general, what are your thoughts on using VR as a form of demonstrative evidence in the courtroom? So I know you're not quite doing that, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are generally on that as a use case.
I guess I need to know what that word means. What's demonstrative? What's that mean?
Just a demonstration of evidence, essentially. Just like in kind of what we're talking about, like just maybe a VR being used to show how fire traveled, where it started, that kind of thing, or where a piece of evidence was found, or in the case or in the Netflix example you gave of that show, the staircase, like whether, like, could somebody have actually hit the victim with a club from a particular angle? Like, that would be VR being used to show these things would be demonstrative evidence.
Yeah, I think it would be absolutely perfect. It's the best way, other than taking someone to that staircase or crime scene, which might not be there anymore. It's the best way. So, but it's only the way if they've scanned it or photoed it at the point that it happened. If you don't capture the data when they're in the crime scene or at the place, then you can't do it. But if you have got that, then I think it is the best way. Like, it will clear so many things up for people, and it will be quicker. People will understand it more, but there will be those barriers at first that are like, I don't like technology, I don't want to pick up the item or whatever. But we've had that at the moment. We have people that do training that don't want to wear a headset, whether that's they feel sick or they've got religious headwear they might have on. We provide them with a tablet so they can do exactly the same thing, but from a 2D screen. It's just they won't be having the spatial experience, but we do allow for that with our training. So it'd be the same thing. It'd be like, if you don't want to wear the headset, you're going to see the exact same thing as everyone else, but it's going to be on a 2D screen. And you'll be the person that won't be able to you'll still be suspending disbelief and trying to imagine what it's like to be there. The other people will be there. And I guess that's a human choice, isn't it? That's the people's choice if they don't want to put the headset on. And
it's great that you brought that up, because given your experience, and also it hasn't been mentioned a lot, like the aspect of actually being able, like, it's assumed that, like, okay, well, everybody has to be in VR if they're in the courtroom, whereas like you've brought up a great point where it's like it doesn't actually have to be that way, and the only question that might arise is would the people who are not using the VR and using the tablet, could that have an impact on, could them not seeing exactly the same thing have an impact on verdict outcomes or what they pick up on or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it could do. If they can't imagine that complex scene, or they didn't see the evidence, the fact that you couldn't see the door from that angle, they could still see it on a tablet if it's a 360 photo or video. They could still see it, but they wouldn't have had the same experience. So I guess as long as you can show the same thing on a tablet, then that's okay. But if you're trying to do can I swing a baseball bat in the stairwell of this house, and in the VR people can actually try it and they keep hitting the wall, then they would have a better understanding of that scene. So I think you would always push people to try and have the human experience of what it's like to be in there. I think most people would do it. A lot of people we see that say no eventually say yes because they see everyone else having a go and they want to.
Yeah, and I imagine seeing everybody experience it and actually not have a bad time, not get sick, not have issues definitely makes the people that were a bit concerned a bit more curious and comfortable.
Yeah.
What cases do you think would be ideal for presenting evidence in VR?
What cases would be?
Yeah. Like what kind of, like maybe, like is there crimes?
Just get the door quickly.
Yeah,
Hold on 1 minute.
Oh.
1 minute. Cool.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, is there types of crime scenes that would be, or complex evidence pieces that would be better suited for VR, and what would they be, and compared to some that could be presented just as well in a video or in a 2D like graphic, because that'll be a question that comes up.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I guess. Like if it's I don't know, I'm imagine a court case where someone's trying to say that someone did something by posting a photo online, or if anything that happened in the real world, in the physical real world, whether it's a house, a location, a car crash, things like that, there'll be things that are good for a VR version. But if the court case is you posted a photo of me on the internet and millions of people saw it, and now the view of me is that they don't like me anymore, or whatever is the thing. I'm thinking of like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard type thing. if it's that, then there's not really any point in doing a VR version of a courtroom.
Yeah.
It would just be statistics of how many people might have seen that post. There's no point in seeing that in VR.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And what are the limitations of using VR as in the courtroom as demonstrative evidence? Can you think of any limitations to using it? And how might these limitations be overcome as a follow-up question?
I guess limitations, not so much now. There used to be with the technology where it was, if I couldn't put 10 people in a headset and they had to use different devices to access different bits of evidence, that would have been a pain. But now you can have a 3D model in mixed reality. I could show a 360 photo in mixed reality. I can also see the person's eyes. They can look at me and I can still talk to them. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it recently, but now it seems like all those barriers have been knocked down. You could put 12 jury members into VR. They could stay in VR if they wanted to for the whole day, and then with the Apple headset anyway, you could it's like you got glasses on. You would just put glasses on when you're in the courtroom. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You could just the limitations were there, but you're doing this sort of research and we're talking about this at the time when the barriers are pretty much fallen down.
I guess the only barriers may be social, barriers are getting it accepted into the courtroom.
That's always been the case. And I think that was harder when the headset only showed 360 video and you had to take the headset off to be able to see the real world. Whereas now you don't have to take the headset off to see the real world. So they would feel more comfortable being able to see everyone around them. They would look left and right, and they'd be like they've just got glasses on.
Yeah, and they're getting less heavy and bulky now, I imagine. So it's
battery is now better. You used to have to charge it up all the time. You used to have trackers tracking your head. Now it just tracks the world around.
Now,
you can see it's definitely going that way.
Is there any issues with interference? When everyone's everybody has the headset on, can there be interference between the devices that cause glitches to happen?
No, same as mobile phones these days. Okay. No, there used to be the case that you couldn't put more than 3 people inside the environment because they had the cable attached to their head or had to be connected to a PC. Now, no. And also the Wi-Fi in a headset can connect to the cloud and it can be showing the most photorealistic ever seen, and all the compute is done in the cloud. You don't even need a PC anymore. That's changed a lot. Remote cloud computing.
And
it's a lot different now.
And with that too, I know someone brought up the latency issue with when everything's wired, except for the headset. You have the smallest amount of latency, which is great. Makes everything more smooth when the visuals more smooth. In these systems, I guess, would it be similar kind of thing where everything is still wired, like the main computer they're using to show the evidence, but the VR headset is wireless? So, is that how it would?
In the systems that we provide, the box of headsets has a router inside the box, so there's no need for a Wi-Fi. The people all connect to the box. They put the headset on, and the video file, for example, is on the headset and on the box. And the box has a laptop that's the control device, where they can press play, choose a different video, press go, all people see it. But there's already plans for us to add the instructor not to be on a laptop. The instructor can just be in VR as well. So the instructor would be able to see the classroom of people, but also see a tablet inside virtual world, press play or hand an item, I could just hand a gun to each jury member, walk along the line with a headset on, and give the same gun to each person. My brain's thinking about different things.
And can you explain what the benefits of doing it that way would be, having the instructor in there instead of outside? Like, what are the benefits of doing it that way?
You wouldn't have to bring all the evidence into the courtroom, like all of the, 50 evidence items for that court case could be all virtual on a tablet inside the instructor's hand. Nothing gets in the courtroom. It all stays locked away in a cupboard, and a 3D model of each item can just be handed to each person. They can have all of the videos and all of the floor plans and all of the 3D models on a tablet in front of them. They could see the whole house tiny, or they could go scale up the massive house and hand it to the jury member. One of the jury might say, "What does it look like in the garden?" And then the person could just go, pass it to them, like walk up to them in the real world. They can both see each other.
Yeah.
They'd see each other in headsets for now. That's changing as well, because
so now that there's no disconnect anymore between like the instructor being outside or the expert describing what's happening being outside of the VR. They're now, like, I imagine as a jury member, it would be a different experience if you're hearing the person leading you around outside versus you can see them in the VR and hear them.
100%. Yeah, that would be a massive disconnect in the courtroom. Now, the limitations, if they're in the experience, they can look up, they can see the person talking to them, albeit with a headset on for now. They'll be looking at the person, they'll have a headset on, but that's changing soon. If you're recording this whole thing.
Yeah, the video.
Yeah.
Or not the video, the audio, sorry. No video, just audio.
That's fine. So just write down to have a little look at Lex Friedman and Mark Zuckerberg inside virtual reality. That is two people. Yeah. Good. That's two people wearing VR headsets whilst looking at each other in eye contact.
Yeah.
That's what the Apple headset and the Meta headset will eventually do. So that instead of having a FaceTime call where we're on a tablet looking at each other, you'll have a headset on, but I won't see your headset. So
it's like we're actually talking across from each other at a desk, like we're in the same room. Yeah, I saw what they did. It was quite fascinating. Pardon?
I'll be able to pass you something,
yeah,
and you just pick it up and hold it, and it's like we're next to each other. So that has literally been done already, and Apple's Vision Pro will do exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
people don't know. People don't know that's coming.
Yeah, it's like right here already. I guess I'm at the end now, basically. So I was just wondering, do you have any questions or comments before we wrap up?
I'd love to, at some point in the future, I don't know if it's with you or someone else, it's not really a question, but I want to try and show people what it's like. I've always said we should have a courtroom with 12 jury, and we just show them a fake crime scene so that I can show people what's possible now. They need to see what's available. Like, I've just watched JFK. I've seen it before, but the documentary and the film about JFK assassination, and they're having diagrams and photos and videos. Like, I went to Dealey Plaza and I experienced what it's like to stand on the grassy knoll and look from the picket fence that's what you can do now. So
yeah.
I would love to have the chance to be able to do that with 12 jury members for any crime scene.
Oh, it'd be really...
And film it all.
I agree. I think it would be really cool to, even for experiment purposes as well as for real life use cases, just to like show the public what's possible. But also there's so many questions, I think, that are kind of hard to answer when it comes to research, mock trials, research that involves questions on law and judicial practices and everything like that. Like I think it's a great platform for actually exploring these questions, which are actually kind of challenging to explore in real life, because a lot of times you can't get into the courtroom and do a mock trial. Like that's quite expensive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think your whole thing that you've just chatted about now, the thing that we've just spoke about, should be like a step one. I'd love to have the audio from this chat, just so I can play it back to people and show people, because we've spoke about some things that are really cool. I'd like to progress them further with some of the products.
I'll send it to you after we're done here.
That would be great. Really good.
Yeah. Well, and actually, do you just use an iPhone? Because I can just send the. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Really good.
I really appreciate this. And is it okay if I reach out to you if I have any questions later? Or
yeah, send me a message on WhatsApp. It's really easy for me to reply on WhatsApp. And sorry about the last time. There was just too many logons. I felt like I was about 85 and couldn't log on to stuff.
I had the same issue actually once, and I find Zoom's. Zoom and what's the Microsoft one is?
Teams.
Teams, yeah, they can be full of issues. I find sometimes this actually worked out really well. I've never used WhatsApp before for video conference, so this has been awesome.
Facebook Meta helping us do things easier.
Yes, exactly. All right, well, I'll let you get to the rest of your evening, and
Yeah, thank you. Really good to chat, and send me the audio. That'd be really good.